Hi everyone. I thought of making a video of all the lessons that we had so far. Actually, multiple videos of the lessons that we had so far with lists. So let's start with the basic concepts. I have the files that we use in class, but I want to break it up a little bit, maybe go a little slower too, for you to have a good review of this material. So some of this stuff, I think I don't need to actually make it isolated by itself. Like for example, here we know that this is how we create a list. One of the questions that I got is, what is that? And it's actually the left and right brackets, square bracket, no spaces in between, no space in between. And that's how we actually created an empty list. So then it says add elements. So this will be an example of how you will add an element to the list. Pay attention to the operators over here, the plus equals, and then you actually put the square bracket with whatever value you want to put into the list. And of course, we did have, we wanted to see what it was before and after. So I'm going to remove these comments so we can see them. We can see how the progression goes of adding elements to the list. I think this would do for now. So we're just zooming onto these two first items on the assignment or the lesson. So first I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to run it. Here it is. So let's compare what we have over here side by side. Here is when we created the list. So we printed before adding an element, and we just put the list itself, the name of the list. This is the raw way of, or raw format to actually display an array. I'm sorry, a list. Then we added here an element, which was 4. So when we print the list, we get the 4. We added a new one, which was a -3. And after we print it, here the list has 2 elements, 2 items, 4 and -3. We can also have, any kind of numbers. And here we have a big number, which is 100,000. So as you can see, we have all, here is that particular one. And somewhere else we're printing, yeah, here I'm printing this one too. So let's have a pause over here. All right, I had a little pause, so now we're back in here. Let's take a look at, here we have the box of Melissa because we added some elements in here. Where did they come from? Oh, right here. Let's see. Where's that coming from? Oh, it's coming from here. Look, right here. Okay, let me comment this out so it doesn't interfere with whatever we're talking about now. And go to format, comment it out. Anything else that's going to interfere? No, I think that will be it. And here we have adding elements, items with values 1 through 10, because if we look over here, this is the line that comes from. We add in a range of values between 1 and 10 because 11 is not included. So we added items to the list, okay? Keep in mind the difference between adding the values and adding the items to the list. So this is where we are right now at this point right here. This is the output of that line of code. And so I ran out of space in my mouse pad. Let's continue a little bit more. So I'm going to comment this out because now, as you can see, do we need to do this part, I think? Which one is this one? No, this one we didn't do it. Yeah, I remember here what we said was, well, we can just, let me see, let me comment this out. We can say that we can just add elements the way we want it. Or this is actually the output. Yes, remember to keep on adding the output to your instructions to Python, right? This one is the one that generates these numbers right here. And actually, after I commented out, maybe we should run it over here. Let's take a look. Because all I have right now is an empty list, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. So here, it's the one that would generate a list, which has the numbers 1 through 10. So let's do that. Let me first save it. And then I'm going to go up there and run it. And there it is. So this is a list with just the elements 1 through 10, because I commented out where we did all the adding elements or items to the list one by one. So here's the output. I copy and pasted it in there. And then we have over here, access the list values by iteration. So there is a difference between doing an iteration of the elements of the items in the list or accessing through the index, which is using right here. The index is actually the I value that we use for the loop. So here it is. So here's I. And so I'm going to use that I over here to access the value itself for that particular location in the list. So let's first go back to the iteration. So I'm going to keep this over here because we need it. And I'm going to comment out this part over here. Yeah. And I'm going to uncomment it. And so here's the actual syntax. The instructions, commands, to the Python interpreter. So here we have a message, so we don't get all jumbled up, all this stuff cropped up together. And here is a line that is really, really powerful because you do not need the index over here. You just access the information that the list is containing by just calling it in with the n right here. So we have over here in range, right? Here we access that information through the index because the numbers 1 through 10 are assigned to number at each iteration, at each loop of the actual for loop, and it uses this as an index of that particular list. So as you can see, a list looks like this, right? And each item in the list is separated with a comma. So for you to access each of them individually, you have to go about a way. One of them is through the index. We know that this is the index 0, 1, all the way through 9. And that makes it a total of 10 items. But we can also use just the iteration aspect of it. So the iteration means that, well, give me the value of whatever it is in the list. And it's going to be one at a time, starting from the beginning all the way to the end. And this type of iteration knows the beginning and knows the end by itself. It's smart enough to do that. So it will take the first item in the list, place it into the variable called item, and then we can print it sideways. So we also tried to do this with a dash or the space. We did a couple of different things. And now we're going to talk about that in a minute. So if we use the dashes, here you can see the separate, that the delimiter is not a blank space anymore. You have over here dashes. Of course, you have that ugly look at the bottom, at the end, which is the dash ending with it, right? But for now, we don't really care about that. We're just learning about how to actually use the iterator. And again, reminding you of how to print sideways with the comma and then the keyword end and the delimiter in between double quotes. Although single quotes works too. Let's take a look at the other stuff that I did in class, which I thought very valuable for future assignments. So I do need this over here, but I don't need this. So it doesn't kind of mess up what we see in the output. I'm going to comment it out. And I don't need this either. I just can put this over here. So the next thing I wanted to do, since we're going to use indexing by value, right? Let's see. We're going to get this one out. And we learn how to actually print, not just a straight down or straight to the right, sideways. We also learn to actually do it in columns, right? So where's that coming from? I think I did it in the next lesson, right? So here, when we do that, here's the format. We have used that format before, but we didn't really kind of encourage the use. Well, now I am going to ask you to get accustomed or get used to using the formatting. The formatting is always in between double quotes. And there is this percent or modulus, because you had in math, you know it for percent. And in Python, you also know it for modulus or mod. But when it's actually following a double quote, it becomes a format. Whatever is after the percent represents what is the format that I want each individual value that we're going to print. What is it that you want it to look like? So here it says 5D. So D represents decimals or digits. I like to call it digits because we're going to have a field. And the field, I mean a whole number of spaces in which I can print a number. In this case, we have 5. And if we're going to count them, we know that there are 5 spaces over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the 5th space. This is where the I will fall. The values of I will fall under this position, which is the 5th position on that space. I call it the field, and is right justified, meaning is up to the right margin. The same thing with the second value over here. The second value, which is actually a list of I, when I is 0, if we look at the original list, when I is 0, the value is 1. And that's why over here it's displaying a 1. And how is it displaying it? Well, it's displaying it in a field that is actually 7 spaces wide. And the value that it displays starts at the 7th position, starting from whatever was already left behind, which it was right here, the 5th position, right, from the first field. So the total, if you're going to think of it this way, maybe it will help a little bit more. The total should be 12 positions over here because 5 plus 7 is 12. and everything is right justified, meaning it's up against the right margin for each of those columns. So here is where I actually did a little bit more explanation of that. And then I show how to do the left justified. So let's do that. We know what the right justified looks like over here. We can run it, see it again. Yeah, I forgot to save it. And here it is. Now let's do left justified, meaning it's up the left margin of that field for each row that we have determined. So I'm gonna leave that one over there because so you can see one against the other one. And I think this is the one, right? So let me get this two out, these two out, and take a look at the negative over here. So only the first column is going to be left justified. And I want you to compare it to the one we just printed. So let me just comment this one out. So we can put them both next to each other. Let me save it so it doesn't ask me that question. And there it is. Take a look at what I mean by left. Left justified is upper left margin. Right justified is up to the right margin, all the way up to the right margin. When you have a field, a width of 5 digits or 5 spaces. What else do we do over here? Okay, let me comment this out because this is only for displaying purposes, printing purposes. So that means that we're not going to need it right now. We did a whole bunch of things over there, but let's go to number 5. So modifying an element on a list is nothing more than what we see over here. We replace this instruction over here is replacing whatever value was at position 0 is replacing with a negative 100. And then we also talk about what is a negative index. This is very unusual for a language to have. In this case, it's counting from the end of the list. So let's do a printing of that list after we did the changes. And again, we're just going to print the list, the raw format that it comes with. And so let's run it. And we should see a change on that position. So here is, move this out of the way from me. Here you can see the original 1, 2, 3, all the way through 10. And then at position 0, we change it. The 1 changed to negative 100 because that's what we did over here. Take a look at 0 position, which it was a 1 at 0 position. I replace it with the number 100. And remember what I said, replace it. I didn't, insert it or anything like that in front of it. I replaced the values. Then I went from the back of the list and at position negative 3, or third position, I changed it to a 19. So if I say 1, 2, and 3, here is my 19. What else do we have over here? Okay, so then adding elements to the list. What is it? Add all elements in the list. Oh, this is adding the values. So I should change that so it makes it very clear. And actually, I'm going to put back the original. Let me remove this so we can see the result. Some of you who know how to add or know the formula. So we should have again the original list over here. And so add all elements in a list. So we can say add all the values. Instead of saying elements, I'm going to change that in a list. Because I don't want to confuse that with adding an item to the list, right? So here we have a total, and I think one of you helped me with this. Uncommented. So I needed to have a variable that will keep the track and information adding to it. Then I printed the list. And then I did my indexing, traversing of the list. And at every iteration, at every loop, I actually add the value. Pay attention to the difference between the way I added to a variable right here, right? And adding an item to the list right here. Pay attention to the brackets. Where are the brackets? In this one, the brackets are outside the number and it has no name of that list because the name of the list is right here. And this one, we add into a variable that is not a list. Take a look, we told Python that this is only a variable, it's not a list. And so we are accessing the value of at that particular I position on the list, we're accessing the value and adding it to total. So we print it and then we see that in fact, the sum of all the values is 55. That's what we did. You can try it again if you missed that part. What about in 25? I'm sorry, 7. And I think somebody helped me with this also, which was really good. Actually, I don't want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of, yeah, let me comment this out. We don't need it right now. And we don't want it to mess up the output. So in here, oops. Let's go back to sharing. I'm just trying to move this out of my way. I think I'm gonna put it on the top there. So in here, let me uncomment this. So 7 says, were we supposed to add a new list? Oh, no. It says assign 25 random integer numbers between 1 and 100 inclusive to a new list, a new empty list. Oh, here it is. This is the new empty list. Here's the left and right square bracket together. So we have 25 random numbers. You can just start from 0. Just put in a 25 over here, and that will be 0 through 24. Or you can do 1 through 26. So here we go. We add in to a new list a new random number, which is between 1 and 100. And take a look. Since we declare that a new list is in list, then it's going to be adding elements to it because we also put them in bracket. If you don't have the bracket, it's going to give you an error, by the way. We have a for loop because it's going to be doing this 25 times. If we print the new list, we have over here the actual values right here. I'm curious about one thing. Anyways, I'm surprised there is no 0 over here. What happened to that? I'll look at it later. All right, so that was the first lesson we have. It was 5.2 basic concepts.